For the next 100 days, I'm gonna be stranded on a deserted island, trying my best not to die with the few resources I have. I end up transforming this island from an inhospitable wasteland to a private getaway island, complete with all the things I need to survive and thrive. So sit back and relax, grab a beverage and some tasty snacks, and join me on this amazing adventure. I began my journey by taking in my surroundings, which wasn't much. I had oak, birch, dirt, sand, and turtles. That's all I needed. Video over. I began by breaking the tall grass in hopes of getting a few seeds, which I did. Then I punched my wood. Then I got stoned again, made stone tools, along with furnaces and stuff, and began hunting in the ocean for fish. Fish was the only thing that was going to keep me alive until I could farm other things. After crafting 3 doors, I began searching the underwater caves for some basic resources, since the only good resources I could find was below my feet, in the earth. As night fell, I smelted some iron I found, and made tools along with a shield. I wasn't expecting skeletons to be a big deal, but trident men? Absolutely. This shield was vital. I also made a composter to put excess saplings in for bone meal, one of the few ways I could gather more seeds. Day 1 began underwater again, searching for iron and coal. I braved the depths using the doors to create air pockets to breathe. Slowly but surely, I was gathering resources. I killed my first drown that night and began to create a staircase down into the earth, eventually stumbling into a fat cave. I then foolishly jumped in like a fool because I'm foolish. Thankfully, by this point, I had made full iron armor, so the threat of me dying was, well, greatly reduced. After clearing out the mobs, I got my first diamond along with all the other resources in the cave besides copper because I hate copper. This caving adventure continued for a long time and I found many resources, not leaving until day 3, where I dug up to the surface and realized I had no idea where my island was. So I had to kill my PC to spot it again. I left with 11 diamonds and a decent haul of iron and gold. By nightfall, I sailed out to a nearby ruined portal to see how good my luck was. It was decent, I guess. I then encountered my first trident man. Using my shield, I killed him but sadly got no fork to eat my food with. Also, a little trick here, if you hold space while holding the shield underwater, the trident will never hit you. Don't ever swim down while trying to block it because his long rod just pokes at your face, which isn't something I would recommend unless you're into that. Now, since I'm gonna be stranded here for the next 100 days with no help on the way, I actually wanted to thrive here. I wanted to make it so that once the 100 days are up, I won't ever want to leave. So, I began the slow process of flattening the entire island. The goal was to use the resources from this island, along with the surrounding ocean, to create a much bigger island that would be large enough for everything I needed. This process brought me to day 4, where I finished flattening around noon. After a short mission to gather more coal, I was attacked by phantoms. Great. I had completely forgot about these horrible additions to the game. Why did I not disable them? They serve no purpose whatsoever. I definitely used the membranes later, so ignore me. What you shouldn't ignore is that subscribe button. I mean, look how enticing it is to click. It's not enticing at all. YouTube made it white for some reason, and it doesn't do anything cool. But you should click it anyways, because, you know. On day 5, I was visited by a wandering trader. I had no emeralds, and he had no bitches, so I slished and slashed to end his wishes. He ain't returning home to no misses, I can tell you that for sure. He has to do all the dishes. I didn't mean it that way. Anyways, he gave me leads. I began digging out a circular area that would mark the center of my island, using birch and oak to create a little ring design. I ended up expanding this in a moment, but first, you can watch me get attacked by my inner demons. Oh, turns out I expand this circle in the same night, so yeah, I guess I just do it here. I filled the inner circle with dirt, with plans to eventually plant my crops here, right in the center. But by nightfall, I was sick and tired of these damn phantoms, so I decided to do something about it. I broke all the torches on my island, grabbed a boat, and sailed far enough away from mobs to spawn on it, hoping for spiders to drop some string for wool. This actually worked, and by the time the sun rose, I had 10 out of the 12 I needed. I think I also got a music disc that night. I started off day 7 by outlining some areas where I originally thought I was gonna build some sort of structures, but I don't end up using these at all, so skip! I headed back on the ground to continue my staircase to bedrock, and on the way I found a glorious cave with even more diamonds, just for me, because, well, you know. That night, I attempted to get the last 2 string, and finally, I managed to craft a bed and rest my head. Day 8 was the day of the strip mine, because I want to be dramatic. Anyways, you know how this goes. By midnight on day 9, I emerged with 30 diamonds, which I used to create armor and a few tools. This time around, I opted not to use a sword at all, unless it was for specific circumstances. Why? You'll see later, if you subscribe. Knowing how to use an axe may come in handy soon, you never know. On day 10, I began gathering all the dirt under my island because, let's face it, no one's ever going to see it, except for all of you. With this dirt, I began laying out the outline of my main island, making sure to keep a natural look while also making it relatively circular. Eventually, I would have to fill in this entire thing with dirt, but for now, this was fine. Day 11 was kinda just resource gathering. Chopping trees, killing fish for like the 90th time because fishing sucks. At midnight, I headed out to find more dirt to steal from the ocean floor to bring back home. And on day 12, I built the nether portal out of obsidian I had collected in the strip mine. I had to dig through a lava pool, or I was going to until I decided to just go over it. Anyways, nether. The spawn was absolutely terrible. I had to dig in multiple directions until I finally found open nether like 10 actual minutes later. Now my goal here was rather simple. I needed leather for a max enchanting table, and the best way to get it was piglin bartering. I literally had dream luck, getting tons of pearls and leather. Unfortunately, not enough all at once, but after mining more gold from the nether itself, I left on day 13 with 34 leather. I still needed 11 more, so I headed back into the mines to look for more gold, and I was decently successful in this mission. Once it was all smelted, I headed back to my little piggies, and finally got the last remaining leather I needed. Combining the leather with all the sugarcane I had been slowly building up, I finally made my max enchanting table, but not before using all the gravel from the piglins to duplicate my dirt supply. I don't really know why I did this, to be honest. There's dirt all around me in the ocean. I could just dig it up from the ocean, but I decided to do this instead. My brain is a brain that's slow. On day 15, I finally made the max enchanting table for real this time. And very good axe. Thank you, game. I also made an anvil and stuff. By the end of that day, I did another level 30 enchant after mining more quartz and got fortune 3, which was huge. Day 16 began in the strip mines. Not sure why, probably more diamonds and to test out my fortune pick. Yeah, I left with 13 more. I returned to the nether for some quartz and got a skeleton to shoot a zombified piglin, so that was fun to watch. And then this happened. Anyways, with the levels I had, I finally made my first god pick. Well, I planned to. I decided to be smart about this though. I wanted an infinity bow, and it was next on the list of enchantments. So before combining my pickaxes, I returned to the nether, got level 30, enchanted the bow, and then I made the pickaxe on day 17. With this bow, I decided it was time to start preparing to beat the game. Using gunpowder and paper, I made fireworks and headed back into the nether in search of a fortress. I already had the pearls from the piglins, so all I needed was blaze rods, so I returned to hell. I had no idea where a fortress was, so it was time to begin hunting. Nearing the start of day 18, I was in the Soul Sand Valley when I spotted nether bricks poking up out of the soil. It was time to commit mass murder of wheezing sacks of rods. Okay, that should be enough, hopefully. The journey back sucked because I didn't retrace my steps, and so yeah. Once I made it out, I made my last few preparations by getting blocks, slow falling, and wood for chests. This preparation took me into day 19, where after hunting more fish, I threw my first eye and began my journey. I traveled overseas for nearly 1,000 blocks, passing ocean monuments, looting ruined portals, and finally discovering other land. I then decided to play Mario Kart. I threw my second die soon after, and it was still going the exact same way, but I also knew from my coordinates that I wasn't that far at all. I used to speedrun this game back in the day, so I have a basic sense of triangulation, which is basically getting an approximate idea of where the stronghold is by the difference in angles between two different eye throws from two locations. After sailing around the coast, I discovered a village, threw the other eye nearby, and realized that the stronghold was probably right underneath of it. I didn't want to risk throwing another eye in case I lost it, so I decided to take a chance and trust that my approximation was correct by literally just digging straight down. Eventually, I found myself in a huge cave which I began exploring, hoping to find a stronghold poking out of it somewhere. I didn't find it right away, but I did find some diamonds. By the time day 20 began, I had found myself in a mine shaft which had more diamonds, and finally, the stronghold. I landed directly in a library and began looting, finding armor trims and, well, that's about it. Not much else noteworthy, besides the portal room literally hidden behind a wall. I swear, if I didn't use to speedrun this game, I would never have known to dig here. Once I found the portal room, I gathered my balls and my wits, filled in the portal, and jumped in. Which was a huge mistake, because despite the fact I had enchanted an infinity bow, I didn't bring arrows with me. I only brought spectral arrows, which still get used up even with infinity for whatever reason, which doomed this fight to be a melee one, something I was not happy about. I used the arrows I had to take down the pillars, quite masterfully I might add, but when it came to the dragon itself, it was a waiting game. I couldn't tomahawk my axe up into her face or anything, so I just had to wait until she perched. Give me a bow, and this dragon is easy, but melee? I've had bad experiences with the dragon straight up one-shotting me on a hardcore world. Luckily, this never happened, and eventually, after a long, tedious battle, the dragon was dead. After I collected her egg, I began my hunt for an elytra, which was kind of the main goal of this mission anyways. Normally, this takes like no time at all because I enter the gateway, crank up my render distance to 32, spot a ship, and then go. But this time, I didn't spot a ship for like 5 entire minutes. Oh, the horror. Day 21 began with me getting my wings so I could stop drinking Red Bull now. Normally, I only get 1 elytra and leave, but this time around, I needed a ton because at least for now, I don't have unbreaking or mending books. There was no way I was going to repair these things, and they were going to break fast. So I spent the entire day looting multiple end cities, finding tons of good stuff. It's worth mentioning at this point that I haven't even enchanted my armor yet, so literally any armor I found in here was going to be better than what I had now. As day 22 began, I was finally on my way home, finding the very portal I'd used to get in here in the first place because I couldn't find a damn escape portal anywhere else. I stored all my items in this perfectly sorted storage room that I made. I'll fix it later. And then I spent all my levels from the dragon kill on my gear. Do you guys really care what enchants I got? Like, do you really? I didn't think so, right? Okay, well fine, I'll mention this. I got Feather Falling 4, which basically means I'm invincible now. Just kidding. I would never die to fall damage. Like that. Now that I had beat the game, I finally set up my task wall, something I do in all my 100 days videos if I remember to at least. It was time to make this island a place I could be proud to call home. Day 23 was spent chopping wood. Lots and lots of wood. On day 24, I was still chopping wood. Now that I had an elytra, I needed a steady source of gunpowder. It was time to make a creeper farm, which requires, well, lots of wood. From then on until day 25, I gathered all the resources I needed, such as string from piglins for dispensers, observers, redstone, and buckets of water. And for the next few days, the creeper farm was constructed, and it was made a lot easier with the elytra, especially getting back up. With the farm done and active, I now had a steady source of gunpowder and string, since I didn't spider-proof the farm either. And you know, string is pretty cool. As day 29 continued, I began to begin... My script writing is just insane. I began filling in this giant circle I had lined out. This process took yet another 5 days to complete, as multiple trips to the nether was made for gravel, before my dumbass realized I could just take dirt from the ocean floor, instead of duplicating it with gravel. But of course, everyone knows tropical private islands aren't just dirt, they need beaches too. So from then on until day 39, I constructed these as well, adding a layer of netherrack to place a ring of sand on top of it. In certain places, I added sandstone slabs to give the illusion that the beach was dipping off into the ocean. And I have to say, this looks really good. Sand, of course, came from the surrounding ocean, by the way. Unless I had a stronghold, I don't think there's any way to duplicate sand like you can with dirt. Now there was a bit of a problem. On a deserted island, villagers are kind of hard to come by, even after you break nearly every torch and let mobs infest your home. Now that I had wings, I needed mending and unbreaking as soon as possible, and the best way to get those was from villagers. Unfortunately, this didn't work on the night of day 39, so once day 40 came around, I made my way back to the end to look for even more elytras just to keep me going for a good while. This mission lasted until the end of day 41, where I had collected several new elytra. Elytra? I don't even know. On day 42, I decided to at least go for unbreaking, because enchanting tables can give that on books. After many levels spent re-rolling book trades, I finally was able to combine 2 Unbreaking 2 books to get Unbreaking 3 and put it on these wings. Now that the wing issue was resolved, for now, I began to finally begin inhabiting the island. And by that, I mean setting up boundaries of my house. I decided to search up a beachside modern home and rebuild it in Minecraft. So I spent some time setting up the scale of the build with netherrack. Thankfully, I had collected lots of quartz for XP, so I wouldn't need to get too much from here. That night, I tried once again for a zombie villager with no such luck. There was a backup solution in my mind, but I didn't really want to use it unless my island couldn't provide it at all. The village where the stronghold was. Nothing was stopping me from potentially robbing some men from there. I mean, that's where all this glorious spruce came from. I actually don't think I mentioned that yet. I got the sapling from the mainland. Anyways, once the netherrack outline was ready, I tried once again for a zombie villager. Again, no such luck. This game hates me as much as I hate it. Also, this was pure pandemonium. Oh god. Why are there so many mobs down there? Run! Skeletons are gonna shoot. Holy shit, they're shooting arrows everywhere! What the hell? They blew up my island! Bro, I need to get out of here. I need to actually just leave. I need to leave. Go, go, go. Like seriously, there was like 50 mobs down there, and not one of them was a zombie villager. Plus, they blew up my paradise. Day 44 lasted like 10 seconds. I woke up, A thunderstorm started, I went back to bed, and skipped the entire day, so that was cool. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Day 45 saw the beginning of a dark room mob spawner high up in the sky. This was honestly just for small amounts of XP and mob drops. It wasn't meant to be insane. The design is also extremely old, being made by Ethos Lab like 10 years ago or something crazy like that. It still works quite well. After collecting some surface, or underwater coal, I began smelting quartz into smooth quartz for the build. Smooth quartz is probably within my top 5 favorite blocks in the entire game, especially for modern builds. It's sleek, sexy, clean, sexy, polished, sexy. And did I also mention it was sexy? I needed more. So I went back to the Nether to get more, alright? Simple enough, okay? Don't judge me. I'm just a man with simple tastes, and one of them is quartz. I'm mining a giant chunk of quartz. I'm stupid. Also, on day 48, I turned the center of my island into a wheat farm. Also, I don't know when this happened, but 4 pigs spawned on the island with the grass, meaning that other than Todd, Joe, Larry, and Gary, which was the names of my turtles, this single sheep finally had some company. Oh, also a sheep spawned. I don't think I said that either. Now, the next little while was a long time. Why did I write that? The beginning of day 49 was spent gathering all the blocks other than quartz I would need for this build, like deep slate tile, roofs, and spruce. I began laying out the deep slate pillars after that. And so, the construction of my modern paradise home began. Multiple nether trips were needed for all the quartz, and many nights were spent trying to spawn a zombie villager. But most of the time was spent building, and I have to say, it felt good to be in my element again. Modern homes are my forte in building, so having an excuse to ditch the medieval style completely was insanely nice. It took me all the way until day 61 where the house was finally complete enough to move my stuff into it. You know, after this house was done, I was genuinely confused where all my days went, but apparently they were spent here. Between all my different small endeavors, this took ages to complete. But finally, I was transporting stuff from my amazing storage room out in the open to my new storage room in one of the rooms. I was finally sorting my items like a big boy. Look at me go. Day 62 to 63 was spent transporting those items. Nobody ever tells you how long this takes until you do it. How did I have so much stuff? Literally 20 plus minutes of just sorting. But finally, at noon on day 63, the house was completely done. To celebrate, I added this cool armor trim to my gear, making it gold to match my skin. You know what? This will look a lot better once my armor is netherite. And since my island failed to spawn any zombie villagers in that entire time, I decided to do the secondary plan, kidnapping 2 innocent men from the Stronghold village and bringing them back to my island. It's fine. They'll have better lives here anyway, trust me. I don't just shove these guys in a box or anything. Well, not for long. On day 64, I began working with my 2 men after delivering the second one. I had captured a zombie holding an item with a boat a while back, so the plan was to infect my 2 men and then, of course, cure them, turning one of them into a mending villager and the other into a fletcher for easy emeralds. But to do that, I need more blaze powder so I can actually make these potions. So I quickly went back into the fortress and got some. I didn't almost die, why would I do that? Originally, I tried getting them to breed a bit before infecting, but for some reason they just completely refused to frick. Oh. And apparently I also forgot to pause my game for a long time, so that's cool. Day 66 is where I began curing these men. It took a while, but I finally had my 2 cured villagers. I spent the rest of that day gathering more wood as I was running low, and wood is cool. I also needed it for sticks and emeralds, because, you know. Day 67 began with me gathering stone and cobble. It was time to do some terraforming. I didn't want this entire island to just be flat. I wanted a cliff to put my future villagers on. This was the first time I've ever actually done something like this sort of terraforming, and I'm honestly amazed at how well it turned out. Starting off with the cliff itself, I created a curved shape slowly rising up out of the ground, and once that was done, I spent the next 2 days adding the grass that slowly sloped up to meet the cliff, adding lots of character to this little island of mine. While building this was not simple, it was actually easier than I thought it would be. I hope these replays are doing these builds justice, because I know my script is just definitely not. Day 70 saw the construction of the villagers' new homes. 2 simple but modern wooden structures at the top of the cliff overlooking the ocean, fit with everything a villager needed, which was beds and workstations, and I guess safety too. I actually really like these homes and this cliff, but there was still a lot of work to be done to make this place a proper tropical island. Day 71 started with me giving my villagers a path to their new homes, and this went pretty well, I'd say. They seemed to like the homes, I think. The rest of that day was spent caving, searching for things like iron. I was running low, and I didn't really have plans to make an iron farm in this video like I normally do, and one of my future projects required many blocks of it, so I needed some. This mission carried out until day 72, where I searched underwater caves as well. As night fell, I created a pillar of iron ore to mine down, which was fun. And day 73 was the start of my next major project. It was time to make this island look like an actual tropical island. I started off by felling the spruce, removing the podzol, and then AFKing the creeper farm. I have an issue where I get easily sidetracked, I think, because the next thing I knew, I had TNT in my inventory and was going into the nether for some netherite. I will get back to this island project soon, I promise. I just absolutely suck at focusing on anything. Plus, TNT mining is fun, so you know what? I like this better. Unfortunately, my netherite luck always sucks, so an entire stack of TNT only yielded 8 debris, and I needed, well, lots more. So I AFK'd again all the way until day 78, where I was finally crafting multiple stacks of tunt, and soon I was back into hell, where I finally got enough to be satisfied. But as most people realize by now, the hard way, you don't just need netherite anymore, you need these smithing template things. So I was back into the nether with my chest plate, hunting for bastions. The first one I found did not yield a template, nor did the second, but thankfully the third one did. So I left there as soon as possible now that I had what I wanted. I don't ever want to go back there again. And finally, as day 79 was coming to an end, I covered myself with some sexy debris. This armor trim looks amazing with my skin, oh my god. Now it's island time. I began by creating pathways throughout the island, first simply using my shovel, keeping a general idea of how I wanted the island to look in my head. I knew for sure I wanted 2 more structures, a helipad and a radio tower, and perhaps a tennis and or volleyball court. So I marked out those areas and let my pathways go to them. I then spent some time tidying up the pathways to my villager homes, adding this deep slate thing as a sort of foundation. Looking back at this now, it doesn't look that great. I think regular cobble would have looked better, but deep slate also looks more modern, which was kind of what I was going for. It's confusing. And in the middle of the night, I began a new adventure. If I wanted this island to look tropical, it needed some palm trees, which meant jungle wood. A sapling that unfortunately no wandering trader had offered me yet, so I took to the skies. I was actually pleasantly surprised with how quickly I found one, but what made it hilarious was just how small this thing was. It was like a mirage in the desert, a small oasis of the only thing I wanted. It even had some bamboo. I also collected dark oak and cherry saplings on the journey as well. Instead of flying all the way back in the overworld, I made another portal out of a random lava pool and flew back that way. Since 1 block in the nether is 8 in the overworld, I could get home 8 times quicker because that's how math works. I then spent some time at the mob grinder for bone meal. And on day 82, I began farming jungle trees. The reason why this was a mega project, by the way, is because I'm not just going to be planting jungle saplings everywhere. I was going to be building every single palm tree by hand myself. So I needed a lot of jungle logs and jungle leaves, and this was a very long process. Oh, and if you're wondering what I did with the dragon egg, longtime viewers should know by now. It took me 8 entire days to build all of these trees, but it was probably the best choice I could have possibly made for the look of this island. It literally looked tropical now, and the atmosphere walking through it was just I continued my momentum on day 89 constructing a radio tower. I had no idea what I was doing with this thing, but I was loosely basing it off of the Cayo Perico radio tower in GTA 5, because I am kind of just this rich man on an island. And in the end, it turned out amazing. It actually looks like a radio tower, which I was not expecting at all. I don't build these things often. On day 90, I began spreading bone meal all over the grass to add even more greenery and scenery to this Cayo Perico-esque island of thievery. That night, I actually did go through with making the volleyball court, so I can watch the villagers play against each other or something, if they can ever figure out how to leave their homes. I had to go back underground for enough iron bars to complete it though. The next part was probably the easiest. A basic deep slate helipad right near the coast. Probably not smart to put a helipad pretty much at sea level, but then again, if a tsunami comes, the island is pretty much toast. Even the villagers. Let's hope that never happens. But with that, practically everything I wanted to do on this island was done. Now it was time for just a few more things, starting with grabbing some fire resistance and heading to the fortress. I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but I have a looting 3 sword, and you know, the wither boss should probably be killed. So it was skull time. I had decent skull luck this time, so I was able to get out of there fairly quickly, and that night I was on my way to look for a random island to fight the wither on. One thing I didn't mention was that the seed has tons of mushroom islands for some reason, so I found one, gathered my balls and my wits, and summoned the wither. The fight devastated the land, but not me. In no time, I defeated the boss and was on my way back home with my nether star. I crafted the beacon and set up a 2-layer beam to give myself swiftness on the island, placing said beacon right in the center of it. I was proud of what I had done. Day 93 was spent trying to unlock the name tag trade from my librarian, as it was time to build an enderman farm. For these to work, I needed a name tagged endermite sitting in a minecart, along with tons of blocks, which thankfully I had in the form of spruce wood. While on the way to the stronghold though, I found some underwater ruins where I actually finally managed to get myself a trident after a long last, which is by far my favorite item in the game, period. Riptide tridents are just absolutely amazing. I love them. On day 94, I was back in the end, pouring lava over the edge of the portal. If you didn't know, the reason people build enderman farms at the lowest Y level is because the spawn rates are actually higher down here than at the regular island level. It's weird, but it's the actual reason why. So after the lava fell, I used water to make a cobblestone pillar all the way down, and I then bridged out nearly 150 blocks from the end island. I then began to construct the farm. Unfortunately, on day 95, I had to return home for rails because I forgot them, but soon enough, I was right back into the end, and on day 96, the farm was complete. I've probably made like hundreds of these in my time, so it wasn't that hard. It worked like a charm. And with this, I was able to heal most of my gear almost immediately, and basically have unlimited XP and pearls. So this will be very useful for 200 days if we get enough likes. With these levels, I got myself the Riptide Trident of my dreams, and realized with a chill that I had absolutely nothing left to do. Sometimes this happens, where I actually complete every task on that wall, and then the last few days are just awkward mini projects. But I decided to do something cool with the last few days. After quickly repairing my mending trident at the mob grinder, I began the construction of 2 little speedboats to complete the look of the tropical island once and for all. Making use of the new bamboo wood for the first time in my life, these little things actually turned out amazingly. Is that a word? It took until noon on day 99 to finish both boats, and with that, I finalized my task wall, and simply waited for the sun to set. I was proud. I had transformed this deserted island into a captivating luxury paradise. For the rest of my time in this world, I looked at everything I had built for my radio tower with pride. As night fell, I slept for the final time and awoke on day 100. Thank you all so much for watching. If you made it this far and haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. What you doing? We just hit 30,000, which is kind of crazy. I can't thank you all enough for the support. Bye!